HOA Karen knocked over elderly dad's wheelchair. Fined $7,500. The park was alive with the hum of a perfect Saturday, kids shrieking with laughter, joggers weaving through the paths, and the faint strum of a busker's guitar. But in the midst of this harmony, a scream sliced through the air like a knife. "You can't just park that thing here," Karen's voice, shrill and commanding, turned every head within 50 yards. I was pushing my dad's wheelchair along the paved trail, his frail hands gripping the armrests as he smiled faintly at the world he could no longer walk through. At 82, Dad's legs had given up, but his spirit hadn't. We'd come to Willow Park every weekend since Mom passed, a ritual to keep him connected to the world. Today, though, Karen, our neighborhood's self-appointed HOA enforcer, had other plans. She stood in front of us, hands on hips, her face a mask of righteous indignation. Her blonde bob was immaculate, her yoga pants screaming privilege, but her eyes burned with something uglier: control. "You're blocking the path," she snapped, though the trail was wide enough for a car to pass. "This is a public space, not your personal parking lot." I opened my mouth to explain that Dad needed the smooth pavement to avoid jolting his bad hip, but she didn't wait for a response. "Move it, or I'll report you to the HOA for misuse of community property." Dad's smile faded. His hands trembled slightly, and I felt a familiar heat rising in my chest. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice steady, "he's in a wheelchair. We're not blocking anything. Please, just let us pass." Karen scoffed, her laugh sharp enough to cut glass. "Don't give me that. Rules are rules. You think you're special because he's old." She stepped closer, her designer sneakers inches from the wheelchair's footrests. A small crowd began to gather, their murmurs a low hum of curiosity. I could feel Dad shrinking in his seat, his pride battered by her words. I took a deep breath, trying to de-escalate. "Look, we're just trying to enjoy the park. Let's not make this a thing." But Karen wasn't having it. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You don't get to tell me what to do. I run this neighborhood. Move. Now!" Before I could respond, she reached out and shoved the wheelchair. Not hard, but enough to send it tipping backward. Dad gasped, his hands flailing as the chair hit the grass with a sickening thud. The crowd gasped in unison, and my world narrowed to the sight of my father sprawled on the ground, his face twisted in pain and confusion. I dropped to my knees beside him, my hands shaking as I checked for injuries. "Dad, are you okay, Dad?" He groaned, clutching his side. "I'm fine, Ellie," he whispered, but his voice was thin, fragile. The crowd pressed closer, some offering help, others pulling out phones to record. Karen stood frozen, her face paling as she realized what she'd done. But instead of apologizing, she doubled down. "He shouldn't have been in the way. This is on you." That's when I lost it. "You pushed an elderly man out of his wheelchair," I shouted. Standing to face her, my voice carried, drawing more eyes. "You think you own this park. You're a bully. Karen, and everyone here sees it." The crowd murmured agreement, but Karen's eyes narrowed. "Don't you dare talk to me like that," she hissed. "I'll have your membership revoked. You'll be out of this neighborhood by next week." Her threats were absurd, but they stung. Our family had lived here for decades, long before Karen and her HOA clipboard showed up. I helped Dad back into his chair, my hands still trembling with rage. As a stranger, a lanky guy with a skateboard stepped forward. "Hey, lady," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I saw the whole thing. You pushed that man. That's assault." The crowd nodded, their phones still rolling. Karen's confidence faltered, but she wasn't done yet. She jabbed a finger at the skateboarder. "Mind your own business, kid. This doesn't concern you." But it did. It concerned everyone now. The tension in the park was palpable, like the air before a storm. Karen's outburst had turned her into the villain of the moment, and she didn't even see it. I wheeled Dad to a nearby bench, my heart pounding as I called 911. "We need an ambulance," I said, my voice cracking. "And police. A woman just assaulted my father." As we waited, the situation spiraled. Karen tried to leave, but the crowd wouldn't let her. "You're not going anywhere," a woman with a stroller said, blocking her path. "You need to answer for this." Karen's face twisted with panic, but she still had the gall to argue. "I didn't mean to hurt him. It was an accident. You people are blowing this out of proportion." The skateboarder, whose name I later learned was Jake, shook his head. "An accident. You shoved his chair. You saw him fall, and you didn't even apologize." His words were like gasoline on the fire of the crowd's anger. Someone yelled, "Typical Karen," and others laughed. But it wasn't funny. Not to me, not to Dad, who was wincing with every breath. The police arrived first, followed by paramedics. They checked Dad's vitals and confirmed he'd bruised his ribs, but thankfully, nothing was broken. As they loaded him onto a stretcher for a hospital checkup, an officer approached Karen. "Ma'am, we have multiple witnesses saying you pushed this man's wheelchair. That's assault, especially on a vulnerable person. You're coming with us." Karen's jaw dropped. "Assault? Are you serious? This is ridiculous." But the officer wasn't swayed. He cuffed her hands behind her back as the crowd cheered softly, a mix of relief and vindication. I stayed with Dad, holding his hand as the ambulance doors closed, but I couldn't shake the image of Karen's smug face turning to panic. At the hospital, Dad was cleared to go home, but the emotional toll was heavier than the bruises. He was quiet, his usual spark dimmed. "I just wanted to see the ducks." "Ellie," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. My heart broke. This was supposed to be his safe space, his slice of joy. Karen had stolen that. The next day, I filed a formal complaint with the HOA and the police. Word spread fast. Jake, the skateboarder, had posted his video online, and it went viral within hours. The hashtag HOA Karen trended, with thousands of comments calling her out. People shared their own stories of her tyranny, finding kids for chalk drawings, reporting unauthorized garden gnomes. Karen wasn't just a nuisance, she was a menace. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. A woman named Mrs. Carter, a quiet widow who lived across the street, reached out to me. She was in her 70s, with a gentle voice but a fire in her eyes. "I've got something you need to see," she said. She showed me security footage from her porch camera, which had captured the entire incident from a different angle. It wasn't just clear it was damning. Karen hadn't just shoved Dad's chair. She leaned into it with intent, her face twisted with anger. Mrs. Carter had been too scared to confront Karen herself, but she'd saved the footage, hoping someone would stand up to her. "I've dealt with her for years," Mrs. Carter said, her hands shaking as she handed me the USB drive. "She threatened to fine me for my rose bushes because they violated code. I'm done being afraid." Her courage floored me. This wasn't just about Dad anymore. It was about a neighborhood suffocating under Karen's rule. Armed with the footage, I met with the HOA board. They were already reeling from the public backlash. The video sealed Karen's fate. The board stripped her of her position, citing conduct unbecoming of a representative. The police, meanwhile, pressed charges for assault and battery. At the hearing, Karen tried to play the victim, claiming she was stressed and didn't mean it, but the judge wasn't buying it. The evidence was overwhelming witness statements. Jake's video, Mrs. Carter's footage. Karen was fined $7,500 and ordered to perform 200 hours of community service, specifically helping at a senior center. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The courtroom was packed, mostly with neighbors who'd had enough of her. When the verdict came down, a ripple of applause broke out. Karen's face crumpled, not with remorse, but with the realization that her power was gone. She'd built her identity on controlling others, and now she was the one being controlled. Back home, Dad started to heal, physically and emotionally. We returned to the park the next weekend, and the community rallied around us. Jake brought his skateboard and did tricks for Dad, making him laugh for the first time in days. Mrs. Carter joined us, her rose bushes now thriving without Karen's threats. The park felt different, lighter. freer. Karen's reign of terror was over, and the neighborhood was reclaiming its heart. But the story doesn't end there. Karen's fine and community service were just the start. The viral video sparked a broader conversation about accountability, about how people like Karen weaponize petty power to hurt others. Online, people debated, was the punishment enough? Should she have faced jail time? Some argued she was just a product of a broken system, while others saw her as a cautionary tale of unchecked ego. I don't have all the answers, but I know this dad's smile is back, and that's worth more than any fine. Still, I can't help but wonder what you think. Was justice served, or did Karen get off too easy? Share your thoughts. Let's talk about what's right and wrong in a world where one person's power trip can topple another's dignity.